And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
I'll tell you, I'm tired of trading in the Renaissance or the Italian Renaissance or some ancient theme. I'm looking for something new. So here we got one. This is Mow Em Down, a landscaping game by Matt Saunders. This is an independent publisher, put out a small game, and it's actually interesting, something new, a new theme. Players are basically going to be putting together tiles over the course of the game, which will form a city, and then they're using their lawn mowing company to get contracts on the different areas of the city, different grass areas, and then try and get the most money to win the game. As the game progresses, basically players are putting together small tiles, medium tiles, and or large tiles, and these tiles fit together. You put grass next to grass, roads next to roads, kind of a Carcassonne type vibe from that. And a player starts the game with 2 lawnmowers. Each lawnmower gives the player 2 chips. These chips will be used in bidding, and the other chips that players have are placed on a board here, and this board is actually a pretty good board, keeps track of your income and whatever bonuses you might have at the bottom. On a player's turn, they roll the die. That die allows them, based on what they roll, to work with small tiles, medium tiles, or large tiles. The first thing they can do, after they figure out which group of tiles they're working with, is they are allowed to place one on the board. When placing it, you have to match stuff up like I already mentioned, and there's a bonus if you manage to put a lake by itself or a grass area by itself. You get a monetary bonus for doing that. The second thing you can do, instead of placing a tile, is a tile that's already on the board, you can put it up for an auction, and basically you're offering up the contract. Who's going to get the contract for cutting the grass on that tile? Depending on what kind of tile it is, depends on how many chips a player needs to have to bid on it. 1 chip is all that's necessary for a small tile, 2 chips for the medium tiles, and 4 chips for the large tile. When an auction occurs, a die is rolled, and then you look at that die. For example, I rolled a 5 here. That means the low bid is 500 and the high bid is 5,000. Players can bid anywhere in between that. So players take one of their chips and they will write their bid with a erasable marker on that chip and then reveal them at the same time. Whoever bids the lowest gets the contract. You put the amount of chips that are needed onto that contract to show that it's yours, and then the next player takes their turn. It's possible to open up bidding on several tiles at the same time, as long as they're all the same size. Finally, the third thing that you can do on your turn is you can kick someone off a contract. If I have 4 chips on here and it's a lucrative amount of money that I'm getting in, you can decide to kick me off of my contract. Also on your turn, you can buy more lawnmowers. And the reason I quickly transitioned there is because whenever you buy a new lawnmower, and they're fairly expensive, $12,000 actually, or whenever you kick someone off a property, you are required to draw an event card, a Mow Em Down event card. Some of these cards are good, but many of them are bad, negative events to yourself. So whenever your fortune goes up, you have to draw one of these cards, or whenever you decide to be mean and just kick someone out of their contract, to punish people for doing that and to keep you from doing it just willy-nilly, you have to draw these cards. Now, if you kick someone off and you get a good card, hooray for you. But there's always that chance you'll get a card that will make you pay for every contract you have or whatnot. So basically, a player's turn is getting money and then doing one of these actions. The game will continue until all the tiles of one type are used up or until all the lawnmowers have been bought, and then whoever has the most money wins after everyone sells off all their lawnmowers. This is an interesting game. The best part of the game, I'll tell you, is the auctions. I like the idea of bidding low. You might think, well, why not just bid the lowest every turn? You know, yeah, if there's a tie, there's a roll-off and so on. But why not just bid low? Why would you even bid high? Because if people bid low, they'll win. But they'll only get a little bit of money each turn. And eventually they'll run out of chips, and while they're waiting to buy more lawnmowers, the folks who didn't bid low can then have a much more interesting war where they're bidding higher, and they're going to get their lawnmowers a whole lot faster than the other person. So you're trying to bid high, but you don't want to bid too high because you want to make money, but you don't want to bid too high because then you won't get it. And if you manage to get different properties that are next to each other in a line, then you get a bonus for that. And that, to me, is the best part of the game. I like that. I like to see more auctions and games like that, where the low bid wins. Now, a couple other good things about the game. The cards for the lawnmowers are really high quality. The chips are pretty good, and they fit on the board nicely. Now, I like the fact that you can write on them, and the game provides erasable markers and little things that you can erase the chips with. But I wish the chips were just a little bit bigger, because sometimes it gets to be a pain to write your bids on these chips all the time. and then erase it, and then write another bid on the chip. I wish there was a little bit bigger of a thing you could have written the bid on. The cards for the Mow Em Down event cards, they're okay quality, not as good as the lawnmowers. And the money, well, paper money. Everything fits inside the box. You have a bag that holds all your chips, your marker, and your erasing pad. And the tiles themselves, as you can see, it's hard for me even to show them on this video because they're shining and catching the light. They're really glossy and thick, and I like how they fit into the game. But the box itself, you know, what do you expect from an independent publisher? Now, the game itself, like I said, I like how it plays. A few problems I have with it. For one, I think that while the placing tiles is neat, I like placing tiles. Carcassone's a favorite game of mine. Getting the bonus for getting lakes and fields together seemed kind of arbitrary. It's not a very common thing. When someone gets it, they get a bunch of money, and it's really just luck more than anything else. And it almost feels like it was tacked onto the game. Another thing I wish the game had done is, while I like buying lawnmowers, I wish there had been different kinds of lawnmowers that you could buy with different abilities. Maybe a small lawnmower that only gave you one chip, just to give you different variety, different options in which, you know, and what to do. As it is now, as soon as you get the money, buy a mower. As soon as you get more money, buy another mower. And that's fine, but it just doesn't offer as much variety as I'd like it to. But apart from those things, I do like the bidding. I do like the theme of lawnmower, you know, and seeing the city together at the end with all your chips, and those are my contracts. And you never can be too sure that you have a contract because someone might bite the bullet, draw a card, and kick you off. And it just keeps the game going back and forth. The game doesn't take too long, maybe about an hour. With better components, republishing by a bigger company, and maybe a few smoothing of the rules, I think this has the potential to be a really entertaining, interesting game. As it is now, I enjoy it, but I think it can only go up from here.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.